como tú.
Welcome to the Way Life podcast, and I'd like to introduce my guest here, Jandamarra. Thank you for being here and allowing me into your beautiful home here. For anyone out there listening, we're in this kind of tiny home / shipping container house. It's quite beautiful and inspiring to see something, and we're in the Sunshine Coast of Australia on Gubbi Gubbi land, and looking out here to the forest and being kind of immersed in nature. And yeah, I'm excited to be sitting here and seeing where this yarn, this podcast can take us. So yeah, I'd like to hand it over to you to maybe, as we talked before, do it in acknowledgement of the country, and then we can talk more together.
Yo way. My name is Jandamarra. I'm a Yorta Yorta, Daja Wurrung, Bunurong, Wutherong, Palawal man, and always like to start with an acknowledgement. You know, no one owns the trees, the stars, the sun, the ocean. We all belong. In that belonging, we pay respects to those custodians that have kept that natural law, LORE, alive and vibrant for us all to witness and be a part of. And here, the Gubbi Gubbi, Kabi mob have kept that law alive and that relationship for us to see for thousands of generations. They've walked on, lived on, and held ceremony on this country. So when I bring these sticks together, they're just sticks in one respect, but the vibration of these sticks is a remembering and an honouring to that very essence. As I acknowledge the Gubbi Gubbi, Kabi people, their elders, their ancestors, and those that are here today. My deepest respects and gratitude as we have a beautiful yarn on Gubbi Gubbi country.
Oh, thank you, Jandamarra. So I guess if we could maybe start by a bit of an introduction for people out there of yourself, you know, where you're from, where's your mob from, you know, a bit about your history, your younger years, and just let people know a bit about you.
Yeah, so I grew up in Brisbane and lived up here in Queensland for most of all my life. I've been here on the coast here for 30 years, maybe 31 years this year. And my mob, my mother's people, she's just Aboriginal, no other lineage. She's, you know, down in Victoria. My grandmother's was Yorta Yorta and Palawal and Bunurong, and my grandfather was Daja Wurrung. And so I went to Melbourne and lived there for a few years. But as I've said, I've spent most of my life up here. Growing up, my father's a Scottish and Swedish man. So growing up in that mixed heritage was a beautiful, interesting journey, but a polishing of making me who I am today, or who I've always been, but more and more peace and understanding that being that bridge between those two worlds has brought a lot of conflict, but also a lot of peace and healing in that journey. So I didn't grow up with knowing a lot of our cultural stories. My grandparents grew up on missions, so it was whitewashed out of them. It was illegal for them to dance or sing song or share their stories. And a lot of those stories, a lot of those ceremonies were kept underground and kept alive as much as they could, but a lot of fragmentation, a lot of disruption there. So a lot of trauma, intergenerational trauma that has disrupted that true expression. So many of us of this generation and beyond have the privilege to be bringing those things back into existence, but living and learning each and every day in Gupu Nawal, deep listening which is the essence underneath all of those ceremonies, those dances and those stories. So I spend my time, especially through art, also with my talking and sharing around the country and overseas, but especially through the art, inviting the viewer, First Nation, non-First Nation, either way, to come and see the true essence of who we all are in identity and relationship to country, community, and ourselves, the elements, the animals, and understanding this is who we truly are, not the very things that we're told that define us, money, stuff, things that never fill a void that was really never there in the first place. So I find myself in loving servitude to that beautiful unfolding.
Beautiful. And you mentioned before that you didn't really have a connection with your Indigenous kind of like lineages or culture growing up. When did that kind of come into your life? Like around what age?
I'd say it started to more so, open up rather than just trickling in bit by bit, probably when I was in my mid-teenage years. It came into more expression, probably around 23, 24, when I started to see a lot more clearer that this assimilation thing was like a chain around my neck. I don't mean, I suppose in my younger years I struggled with trying to understand, and then I stopped trying to understand and learn to see with more clarity. I was locked up in juvenile institutions. I ran away from home. All of these things are byproduct of the intergenerational trauma, but also the trauma of living in a system that I saw was training me to be a cog in a machine, and I could not fall into line. So for me, taking off at the age of 13 and living on the streets there was a warm home that I could live in, and yet here I am out in the cold, many days, no food, no shelter, no nothing, but I was free to be me. And then when I say free to be me, often my time was spent in nature spaces. So, that was a foundational shaking of my youthful upbringing that broke away me in many parts, my identity, because what I was being groomed in was that having stuff, having a job, having all these things was meant to be the pinnacle of my existence. But what I started to see was, through the veil of that illusion, was that I was not happy. The drug, the sniffing of petrol constantly, to the drinking, the sex, the constant distraction of the pain that I felt inside, which was often projected out as violence. At that time I wanted to burn it all down. I'll kill. I fortunately didn't kill anyone. But that anger, people would say, that's who you are. That drug, that petrol whiffing, that's who you are. But that was all a byproduct of this knowing that was unfolding, which later in my years became a foundation of clearer listening and being able to share this with not only other people, but especially at-risk young people that were in those institutions that I spent time in, knowing that punishment is not the way.
Was there some elders that you had in your younger years that maybe steered you on the right path? I mean, how did you go from juvie and to, was it a moment of clarity that you had by yourself, or was it kind of people around you that kind of were steering you in the right direction?
A lot of elders at those times weren't there. My grandfather was hit and run over by a car, killed the year I was born, 8 months after I was there. And a lot of my elders had been very worn down by that system, and still coming out of the darkness of not being able to share at all. It was pretty much illegal. If you shared, you'd be beaten, even be murdered, until 1967. First Nation mob here were classed as fauna. So, they had no rights. You could go and shoot an Aboriginal person in the street, and there was no law that could be in place to protect or so. There wasn't a lot of elders growing up in the 70s. There was elders, but not a lot of elders that I could go to and listen and learn from. So I learned that I had to take that on inside. And I suppose that was an organic process that was already happening. It was unfolding of its own accord. I just couldn't see it in my mind. It's like, this is so fucked up. This is messed up. I'm going to end up on the end of a rope. I can't do this system. I don't know. I can't see no way out. But in seeing that no way out, it revealed a new light inside. That became the elders, and I felt their presence. I felt my grandfather. I felt my uncles. I felt my presence of them aunties, them elders there. There was always a lot of women in my life. When I say that, my aunties, my grandmother, they were the ones that were there, and they were the ones holding that light alive. I remember grade 2, running home from school, constant bullying, the names, the calling, coon, bong. The one that really stuck and hurt me deep was the one, you're dirty, and you already feel like you're a stain on society growing up. And if only you could remove your skin and peel it back to reveal that whiteness, maybe you could feel some sense of belonging or happiness. So I ran home grade 2, jumped in the bath, poured paint stripper and metho and bleach and all this stuff, tried to scrub my skin off there. Didn't realise that underneath that skin ain't no white, it's just blood. Anyway, my mum come home, sad to see, so sad to see a little brown boy trying to scrub off his skin, But it wasn't a shame of being my culture. It was more that, man, you feel so outcast in your own life, a stain on this society. So, you end up, that stuff there served as my testament, like the dark night of the soul. And, when I was locked up in that juvenile institution at 16, we broke out, me and 4 other Aboriginal inmates broke out. We were sick of the abuse there, the constant abuse mentally, emotionally, physically. So we broke out and were recaptured and put in what was known as the pound, and that's an isolation ward. 4 brick walls, a big steel door, half rations of food, left in there. And that there was a moment of utter madness and insanity on one level. On the surface level, it totally ripped apart who I thought I was. When you're there naked, stripping, bashing your head against the wall, laying in your own feces, vomit, urine, your own blood. And you realise, man, there's nothing in this world that is going to give me peace or contentment. I want that rope now. But in that moment was more and more of this abundance of understanding, inner knowing that came alive. It was born out of those moments, the scrubbing of the skin, the torments, the bullying that came the elder. And when I say that, I don't mean myself, but the elders within me that come alive, that guided me to go, man, you're not broken. You're not wrong. You're perfect. You're part of something that is greater, and it's outside of this sight, smell, taste, touch, matrix world that you are in at this point. And that started to develop more and more. So those physical elders weren't there at that time. Later in life, they came and they were there. Uncle Bob Randall, beautiful. Uncle Warunga, yeah, beautiful ones that really, for me, like father figures, came and supported that unfolding, that blossoming of the spirit to immerse deeply in knowing who I really am, not me, Jandamarra. That's just a mere closing up I have at this point. But that true essence of knowing that I walk tall with everything around me. I'm never alone. Even when you're in deep isolation, you're never alone. We got you. You're there. You're in the arms of that womb. Yeah.
How old were you when you mentioned before you were in the bathtub using paint stripper and stuff? How old were you?
Grade 2, so probably 8 years old.
8 years old. I mean, no child should have to go through that, and to think about, experiences like going through trying to scrub your own skin off, and as a teenager when you should be, thinking about maybe, what career path you want to take, or interested in sport or going surfing, and you're lying in a cell. It just shows you how broken, these systems are. But I think also in that, as well as you said, that stability to like remember and find your true self, the belief, or the believe in yourself 100%, and know that you are protected, and to go through those dark moments. But it's strong history, and there's a lot of that around the world, and it's not something maybe in your 20s or your 30s you go through this this difficult process. It's from a young age, and it's such innocence, and that's
We First Nation mob here on this land have the highest rate of suicide in the entire world, and the highest rates of incarceration in the entire world, and amongst the lowest life expectancy. That too is a byproduct of that intergenerational trauma that is still unfolding. And when I mention those suicides, the highest percentage of that is our young people. And I'm not talking 14, 15, I'm talking 8, 9, 10 years old, growing from that young age, feeling like they don't even belong in this land that their ancestors walked for, millennia. And it's like, wow, that's the one that we continually trying to raise awareness to bring healing. And as you say, no child, no one should bet this isn't just on this land. And when I say this, it's a far greater expanse around it. But the colonization that brings in these systems in place where there is a flow, it starts to sever those disconnections deliberately to turn it into a dead system, and it destroys the people that were living as a flow. Mob here on this land, it was documented, and all around the globe, there was no known tooth decay. There was no known sickness, no colds, no flus, no virus, no disease, no heart disease, no diabetes. There was no known crime rates. There was no jails. There was no known suicide, and these things were a reality. This was the truth of being a flow. We were told from very young age, your system was backwards. Your relatives were a bunch of savages rolling around in the dirt. These lies get impregnated deep into your psyche. And it's not that you choose to believe them, but they are there, framing and informing your life. And you fight that black dog continually. I lost my brother. I've lost 2 cousins to suicide. It's a reality. I would say that I can't say all, but there are just about every First Nation family has dealt with suicide in this land here. And yet there's over 500 different mob, and over, 800 different dialects, and this is diverse. So, this is something that is still not truly seen. The thing is, it's not about shame. It's not about guilt. It's not about blame. It's about the healing, and those, whether you're the perpetrator or the victim of those atrocities, that healing needs to happen, cycle both ways. And bringing that stuff into the light is something that is not done here. If they bring it into the light, they want true walking together, proper way. You'll see that naturally as a byproduct of that.
What would you say for people out there, anyone that's listening, who's maybe battling with depression or suicidal thoughts or anything like that? What do you feel is a good way people can, kind of conquer that? What's the first step they can take on that road of healing?
I think it's understanding, man, that the programming that we have, that something's wrong with us. This system we live in is a very traumatic system. When I say that, the one, that is of accumulation is that your identity is based in the things you have and the money and the title before your name and all of these. I'm not disrespecting that one. It's obviously a reality, and we navigate and live within that. But when you're defined by that, Many of us struggle. You lock an animal up in a cage. You could take away that cage. Psychologically, it's still locked up, and it shows side effects of that. We are all psychologically traumatized, living in a system where we believe that our purpose and our value is in making this money, this stuff, and this is providing us true freedom. But much of it comes with a psychological landscape that is based on prison. You've got these mental prisonscapes that we are locked away in so much that it becomes so claustrophobic. There seems like there's no way out. It becomes what many of my elders call the walking dead. You're living and navigating life in an empty existence. You feel no relationship with your spirit, with your surroundings. And if you do, you feel like, how do I live in a system that continually seems to come into conflict with that? I would say to those people, stop. Sometimes just sit and listen. And whether it is talking to someone, for me, talking to a complete stranger who doesn't know anything, in our kinship law, we grow up with our grandmothers, our grandfathers. We sit and talk to them. They know us from day dot. But everything's so fragmented and distorted now. That's the ones you would sit and talk. Hey, I got this feeling, doesn't feel right in me. But now you go and talk to strangers and you pay this money and, they have this textbook thing that they go by. But, that part of us inside that sometimes the byproduct could be classed as mental illness, emotional illness, physical acting out. These are all a byproduct that we can't fall in line with this system of trauma. And it's not those things that need to be adjusted so that you can fit in more to the system. Those are the things that are the indicators to say, this system ain't working. We need to find ways to come back to your spirit. And for our mob here, it's sitting on country, and it's also in community. It's also in relationship with the animals. It's also in relationship with the elements. But when you sit on country and you deeply listen, Gulpunawal, we call it, in my Kulin Nation language, up further it's known as Dadiri. What you are is you're remembering who you truly are, and that you are not broken and something is not wrong. If you go and cut your finger, it's like saying, hey, that's a problem there, that blood coming out. That blood is just an indicator that something needs to be addressed. That wound that is there. You don't address that wound, it can turn into something more serious. It's like pain in our lives. We're taught that pain and anguish are bad. Keep in the good. This is a denial of the whole homeostatic balance that lays within us. If we stick our finger in the fire, it is there. That pain is to bring us into the moment, to be present with what is there so that we listen. Otherwise, we burn our finger off, we burn our hand, our arm, our body's on fire. We're gone in this physical body. So pain on an emotional, physical, psychological, or whatever level is there to serve a purpose. And whether it be those that feel the pain of disconnect, it is there, and it's not that expression is not the problem. The problem, it is just calling you to come to a deeper sense of knowing yourself, and a knowing that your sense of purpose and value is not merely in this superficial expression, and more trying to fit into this as we are taught in school and our social norms. If you do not fit in, you are an outcast. You are a fringe dweller. You are the black sheep or the rainbow sheep. But when it comes down to it, they are the very things that keep us connected and alive. And the most, I say this in the most open of ways, those that seem the most sane can often be the most insane, because the more you can conform to this system and behave like you've got all your shit together and nothing's going on for you, and your money and your things are all in it, all your affairs are all tidy and clean, that is an indicator that there's something missing there. So, true wealth is in your ability to connect. In this system, this Western system that is a certain reality. We are taught that the more we define ourselves, the more we stand apart and above others, the more we are successful. Whereas our, mob way here is more that you are able in relationship to connect and immerse, and the we and oursness, the more that you are successful because you are at peace, you are at connection, you are a relationship, you are in rich, sustainable relationship.
Would you say that you're an artist, as a lot of people know, and I'm talking to you here behind, I believe this is your painting, right?
Yeah.
And we'll get a photo of that for everyone listening out there. Would you say that your art has helped you? I'm sure it's played a big part in molding you, but how would you say that that's helped you maybe remember who you are, or remember that culture, or let that a creative kind of life force come through, or that connection to the ancestors or to culture?
Yeah, it's definitely played a pinnacle role when I was locked in that isolation, which all the other 4 inmates that were with me, have gone now. Only 50 years old. I'm not in my, my older years yet, and suicide and, others died of a heart attack at like 30. Anyway, that when I got out of that cell there, I stopped talking. I was really in a bad way. A beautiful counsellor woman came in, introduced me to a paintbrush. That there, I'd painted before, but it took those moments of being completely knocked down to the ground for me to really see what was coming through the art. And I mean, the art, it's canvas, staples, paint. They're merely elements that will end up eventually on the rubbish dump one day. Everything, is heading that way on one level. But what they are is an invitation, and they're a vibration, It's like music. Music, art, anything creative has the ability, like a hot knife through butter, to reach in and touch not only yourself but another, and get them to engage on a sense of transcending the mental prisonscape to feel alive in childlike spirit. So for art, for me, it was deeply nourishing at that time, and it became a bigger part of my world. But at that time, it was a savior because I could express my voice in a way, in a visual format. But then it started more and more, the language started to open up. It transcended the elements. The elements became a mere visual invitation to something greater and deeper. It's like you could say a song is just a song. A friend is just a friend. A child is just a child. But when you get to see the true essence and substance of those things, you realize how powerful those modalities are. Over the years, people started to see that for themselves. The viewer, and we got this thing, and I don't compare these, but I see it's coming into balance, and this system here, it's focused on always achievement. You're getting from A to B. It's always a journey. It's always a journey to somewhere. Art for me made me realize that there is nowhere. This moment is it. You have arrived. And this constant thirst of attainment or getting to somewhere, you're sacrificing the essence of living. And so art for me was sitting in the moment. Sometimes I would paint up to 18 hours a day, and I'd go far out. I got to go to the toilet. Gee, I got a drink, wasn't even aware of that stuff. So present in the moment that it was like a flow. I'd watch my hand, as I mostly do with all the painting. I just watch my hand doing this thing in front of me. And there's an emptiness, a spaciousness, but a fullness there happening. Hyperrealism, using color, black and white, using complete dots to create form as a relationship to country mapped out in their facial features. This all just flowed, and there's a whole language there. And so art for me became more of that healing and understanding that I was a bridge between my father's world, that European expression, and my mother's world, that Aboriginal First Nation mob here, and understanding that in that bridge, there is no right or wrong. It becomes as abstract as someone has a dog and someone who doesn't have a dog, who's right and who's wrong. It becomes more of going, there is a journey here. And this constant journey of nourishment is the true awareness. So that art became more of that, and inviting young people. I worked sharing with elderly and those that are disadvantaged, disabilities, and using their medications would go down over the months. The mental neuroses that they had, the mental isolation would start to dissipate. And the healing, yes, they were doing something with their hands, but the healing was coming into the moment and being present, as opposed to always living their life, getting from here to there and just surviving. So I found it a very powerful modality that also very fortunately introduced me to a lot of certain situations, exclusive situations that I wouldn't have had access to or been part of, that were beautiful big ceremonies and healing and gatherings that were of true intention of awareness of the value of coming back to remembering who we are. Like a fish. In Western science, they say the fish is here and the water is here. They are two separate entities. But you try and separate that fish from water and you see what happens. They are one and the same. So our connection to that flow, to country, to community, to our spirit are one and the same. And yeah, art was a beautiful, has been and continues to be a powerful invitation to that. Recently, I've been doing a lot of murals, not in the studio as much. And these murals, I've gone to school and they asked me to do a mural. And I say, I'm not really up for doing a mural. I'd rather do a collaboration. So 760 plus students and over 40 plus staff come and we help design pre-hand before we touch a wall. And then we come up with this beautiful visual narrative imbued with gubby-gubby, carby-carby connection of relationship of that flower to that animal, silky oak to the eel, the batwing coral flower to the mud crab, talking of the story of out here on the coast, there's the leader fish, million-year cycles, guiding young fish to the spawning ground. Don't catch them ones. Take 7 generations to regenerate the damage that's done. Watch the stringy bark come off, the bark come off that stringy bark tree, tells you that the seagull is there at the same time, diving for that mullet shawl, tells you that leader fish is past, go fishing. You're not breaking those cycles. That benefits all of us. These narratives, again, rippling that connection and that presence and that understanding that it's not black, white, woman, man, gay, straight. It's something that is us all. So these beautiful visual narratives that speak volumes of that stuff, And again, the art that I am in servitude, that essence that is the undertonal greatness of it all and its unfolding, that I am merely a catalyst part of that expression.
Beautiful.
Is
how would you say being a father yourself and having a childhood or situations in your childhood which you've discussed here, how has being a father helped you heal that that inner child that sits there that had those struggles that no child should go through? How do you feel being a father has helped you be there for your children? How do you feel that your culture has guided you, or your connection has guided you to be a father?
And I'm so glad that I had my children later in life. And obviously it's perfectly meant to be, but being in my 40s, I had 40 when I had my first biological child. I've been a stepfather to a couple of other children. I always will be. But, for me, an awakening and seeing that all that I'd gone through in my life wasn't an obstacle. It was an invitation to a greater, deeper healing. And, when my children come into my life, my 2 girls, Mindari, 10, Nanyara, almost 8, they invite me into a deeper healing that took it on to another level. And the cultural responsibility to keep them connected with their spirit was great in me. It was, imbued by all that trauma. It was imbued by all that trauma, imbued by all those moments that you could see on one level of vision and go, they were wrong, they were bad. Without those, I wouldn't be where I'm at. I approached the school when my oldest one started here. She's in a state school. And I said to the school, you have anything here that cultural teaching, learning? Do you walk on country? Do you learn? And, I wanted to have a dialogue, but I knew underneath that these schools generally don't have this. It's often individuals within there that do something about it to change that, but they didn't, and in speaking to them, their concern was that my thing was, it's my responsibility. So I'm here to give them that cultural grounding. I mentioned the statistics of suicide and all of these things that are still a reality, and my experiences of schooling and everything like that, being very vulnerable and open with them and their concern, which for me, I said, I'm going to take them out one day a week, and so that we can walk on country, we can have that relationship. I do not want my girls put in a position where they ever feel what I had experienced and many others are still experiencing today due to that disconnect. And the first point of concern for them was that their grades will dwindle, and you'll see it over the years that it'll affect them and leave them behind. I mean, I understand on a level that for them, having a job and learning how to navigate that system is very important. But they still are learning to see the importance of that connection and understanding that's vital for all of us. So, I've taken them out, which I do singly one day every week. And in that, they walk on country. They guide me to where they want to go. We want to go to that place this time. And we watch the relationships. We make traditional fire. We weave, we learn, we listen. And they are both grade A students. So, that's just a testament to show that going to somewhere to sit and listen and look forward at something 5 days a week is only serving the mental capacity of attainment, but it does not deeply nourish this inner relationship. And that is something I didn't have someone there to do that for me. I ran away. I pulled a knife on a teacher, expelled. I got caught smoking weed in the classroom, expelled again. I didn't show up for school the next time, and I was expelled 3 times from 3 different schools. And that was all because I didn't feel any sense of connection. And that's where I took off, I ran away, because for me, what I was seeking was something more substantial. But at that time, there was no one. So to be there for my daughters, it's also healing that inner canvas that had lived within me, and it's coming more and more into peace and harmony. Because when I understand I'm out there listening to country and being with them, I'm also healing that inner child. I mean, when I lived on the streets, I mentioned it, I would go to nature spaces and I would lay under them stars. No security in that Western way. I'm out there all on my own. Later on, I was joined by other mob and we'd stick together and look after one another. But I'd look up at them stars and I feel more at home than I did being back there in the warm fold of a house, going to school and doing all that, because it wasn't the thing of fitting in for me. It was the thing of feeling like I had a sense of place and identity. And there was no identity then. And my girls, hopefully they're growing with a deeper sense of grounded identity. If they're papa, because I tell them, I don't own you. That person that wears that suit and has that badge or stands at the front of a classroom, they don't have authority over you. They're sharing something as another human being. You are your own sovereign being. I don't own you. And in that, I am merely here to guide and give you tools and knowledge and awareness that hopefully serve you throughout your journey. Having that relationship within, no matter where you are and whether I'm here or I'm gone or your mum's here or gone, you will know. You will know. That will give you the answer. And that is the best thing I can do to give you something as your father. So also that cultural knowledge and understanding. And it's great to see the school being now They don't question it. They're receptive to it. I notice some other parents taking their children out every now and again, and they're non-mobs, but they call it a mental health day. So, there's that healing. And I think many of my mob parents are the same. They see that through our generation of such suppression, oppression, and repression, which is still here today, don't get me wrong, but we are able to at least share these stories. We're at least able to share these relationships, not in hidden, being invited to open spaces, homeschool groups, to community gatherings that are really yearning. And my girls go along and they, of their own accord, will wear a shirt, a beautiful Indigenous shirt, and feel proud when their papa's sharing this information. Or we go there and we see dance and ceremony from local mob here. That is something that deeply healing through my children, through the young people.
Do you feel that that's a necessary thing, not only for maybe Indigenous mob, but I mean, we're all Indigenous to the planet, we're all native to the planet, but do you feel that's something at this time where we need to be coming together more and doing that as a collective? Like, we're here on the Sunshine Coast. Would you say that, or would you encourage parents with young children or middle-aged children to get out there and connect to Indigenous mob, Kabi Gubby, and kind of tap in and find out more about the country that they're on, and maybe elders that can give a word that can help them kind of be a better parent or help them kind of steer their children in the right way?
Oh, man, yeah. I mean, granted, people say, oh, where do I go to these things? It's still quite fragmented in some ways. But I tell you, the local mob here, they're being called forward. When I say called forward, they're so rich and ready to be wherever they need to be. But there's so much more demand for them and their voices that they share. And, as I said, those ceremonies, those songs, those dances, you could look at them from the outside and go, oh, that's a nice dance. Beautiful. Thank you, Aborigine, for dancing. When you see the true essence of what those dances relate to and connect with, and the vibration of those dances being passed down from generation to keep it undiluted, unfragmented, keep it very vibrational alignment with what it is inviting you to. It's like more and more are seeing that as opposed to the external. And what they're seeing is a reflection of their true selves. When I say this true selves, it's not for me, Jandamarra, to say what's true and what's not. But when you investigate deep within all of us, there is a universality that we all belong to. And not to go off topic or subject, when you have a natural disaster, a flood, a cyclone, a fire, or even a man-made one, a building collapses, people tend to run in the opposite direction. Someone will jump into a raging torrent to save someone they don't even know. This is the stripping away of all that illusion that we've been conditioned to believe, to remember that is me. I see infallibly myself so clearly in that being, that animal, that thing, that life. So when they see so clearly in those ceremonies, those invitations to the dances, or in the speaking in language and learning language and understanding the vibration of those words shared that reflect the lay of the land, the connection of land that speaks through that vibration, they start to see a clearer reflection of who they really underneath all of that, which, as I say, becomes more evident when crisis happens and people are taken to the precipice of, wow, and it strips away. And more, I see community yearning for that, because they may see on a surface level, that's First Nation mob, that's Gubby Gubby's dances here that they've done and shared. But as they listen to that vibration, they're basking in knowing that they have a sense of belonging. A lot of people here from overseas or wherever have this fragmented sense of belonging that they've not only come with, but they think here, oh, how do I belong? I don't know how I belong. This is not my land, my country. But that sense of belonging remembers that we're all custodians. And in that custodial response, we're all tribal people. And no matter what geography we are or at or how we got to be, guilt and shame are part of the same wheel of continual perpetual motion, of disconnection, of opposition, of the law of duality. You are right, I am wrong. There is bad, there is right. And you start to see that those fundamentals are less about the elements themselves and more about the teaching indicators that they are. And you start to see that whether you are black or white or woman or man becomes less relevant, and you see and focus on the universal glue that connects us. You know, when we experience those dances and they invite us to sit on country or sit with an elder, you know, and an elder people might see as a person who's older, and that is sacred reverence to that. But an elder is the keeper of that law. Sometimes it's the law of the song, the law of the dance, LORE, the law of that language, the law of that ceremony. It's a mere invitation or catalytic, visual, auditory, sensory expression that invites you into a deeper relationship with self. So I think more than ever, especially after the past few years, where they've been pushing for more division, more segregation, more fragmentation. And this is what a certain type of archetype would like from us, because when we're more like that, we're less likely to focus on the things that unite us, and they're a mere distraction. But the more we remember who we really are, the less we focus on the external differences. You go into the forest, there's the kookaburra, the lyrebird, the butcherbird, the magpie, the crow, the currawong. They each sing their song. We don't look at them and go, hey, you should sing like that one. Oh, that one's less than that one. Or that one's wrong. You go, wow, what a beautiful symphony. And this is the truth of it. The more we come back to that natural law, we see with clarity that we are not wrong. We are made perfect. Without one piece of the puzzle, the whole puzzle is not the whole piece that it is. The true original sin, if you like, or the true original damage that was done is the sense of ownership or separation. Because if you imagine a bird in a nest outside auctioning its nest, you go, wow, that is so crazy. Yet that's what we've learned to believe as our norm, the same as competition. You are my enemy. And this is the reality that we believe, that everything and everyone else exists separately from me. And often I'm the center of the universe. But the eye cannot look at itself. It sees its reflection in everything around it. So when you judge your reflection, everyone, every element, tree, element, aspect around you, you are judging yourself. You are putting yourself in a mental prisonscape rather than seeing that the eternal dreaming is the oneness, is the understanding your true nature as that oneness. And there's only me. When you believe in trauma, that you are separate. There is we and oursness. And that is a belonging that those songs, those dances, those ceremonies are inviting you to. And if you miss the whole point of it, which isn't a judgment on that, then you are in a place where you still believe that you are separate from everything. And you start to remember that you belong. You're in the greatest collaboration ever, and that you don't own anything. That concept is traumatic. You know, you touch that tree, I'll kill you. That's my tree. You know, you start to understand that you are the sun, you are the dirt, you are that blade of grass. And they are continually going, I wish to get to know you. And when you wish to get to know it, you come in this place of remembering, never coming back to, because you're always there. More intimate than the breath itself, remembering that you are in relationship with everything, and it is in relationship with you. And you are an absolutely most beautiful, integral part of that co-creative unfolding.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Powerful words. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, final words, maybe some words of advice for people out there that are maybe just embarking on a journey of connection and oneness. Maybe people out there with small families or troubled youth. Any final thoughts of what you've picked up along the way and put in your medicine basket, and how you could kind of sum that up in a final word?
If I do say something, and these are mere words that carry vibration, feel it in your spirit. Don't believe me, believe your spirit. That is the thing that will, it brings tears up in me, because so many of us are looking for peace and healing. We're told that we're all looking for $1 million, but, in believing that if we get that $1 million, we could keep the wolves at bay. We don't have to keep trying to strive every day for something to keep the wolves at bay. And when I say the wolves, I mean that system at bay that knocks on your door if you don't pay your bill, if you don't turn up, if you don't engage in this system. Come back to that place, that inner knowing, and listen to that. That will guide you. That will bring you the people that you need. That will take you to the places you need to be. We are often looking out upon the pond with ripples in it and going, wow, those ripples, I can't see my reflection very clearly. But then we often find that we are the ones that have the hand throwing those stones and causing those ripples. And those stones that we throw in there are often a judgment or an internal landscape that we have based on this separation. When we listen more within, we start to invite that healing. And some, it might be through certain dietary means, it might be through doing this workshop. But just remember that as you listen within, you are that healing, you are that abundance, you are that thing that you seek, that you seek, but is always here and always now. And you are there, you have arrived. As much as you are told that you still need to keep making those goals and looking after your children and making sure they have food and all of these things, cut wood, chop wood and carry water. When you do it with your eyes wide open, it opens up a reality that starts to become more of one of servitude as opposed to what I see as one of slavery. And when you become in that servitude, you realize that you are in servitude to that love, and that love deeply nourishes, and it will over being in the moment. I mean, as I didn't get to say before, we have what's known as song lines, but they're more like song circles where you never ever, it's never about getting from that A to B. It's forever living in that moment and having a relationship with that moment deeper and deeper. For those that have troubles or have children that struggle, which would be a pain, great pain, it is continually, if you have the ability to connect them to country. You look out on that land, on that sunset, as many of us would know, and at times you look out there and you don't know where you begin and it ends. It starts to speak through you, and in that starts to remove those rocks that have made things to get to that point of what feels like stagnicity at times, and allows that flow to happen. I mean, that's the greatest thing that through my painting, through my words, through my presence that I ever wish to be a part of inviting others to do, is to listen, deeply listen, not just with your ears, but with your spirit. We are taught to be distracted and to constantly keep our minds occupied, and they are often taking us away from listening. And when we have these painful things that keep bringing us into the moment, we are avoiding the lessons. So if we listen more and more, the healing will be there and come.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's a
Your way.
powerful way to end this discussion, this yarn we've had together. I want to say thank you very much for taking the time to be here and invite me into your home, Jandamarra, and for sharing your wisdom, a bit about your path. And I'm going to put in the podcast links, some links to your artwork and website and Instagram and stuff, so people can check out the beautiful work that you're doing. And thank you very much for being here.
Bonjour, brother. Thank you very much. And thank you for, my grandmother and my grandfather, as I say, would had that voice, but, and there's people like yourself who are opening up those voices to be heard in audiences and getting that, I wouldn't say a message, but that essence of knowing out there. And I'm deeply grateful on behalf of my family. I'm deeply grateful because that healing is happening and we're doing it together. Go away,
Somos la tierra, somos la vida, somos la luna, la estrella y el mar.